If you think that live streams is the thing from the 21st century, you're wrong. Interactive Television Media, an IT company from Denmark, invented interactive live streams already in the 1990s. It was a TV game show Hugo, a nice-looking and quite simple platformer. The main invention here was the fact literally anybody who owned a TV and a telephone could play it without purchasing a PC or a game console. The only condition was the need to support tone dialing by your phone, and of course your phone couldn't be rotary if you wanted to play. And here in Russia it was a real problem, as most of our phones were rotary and used pulse dialing till the late 90s. If you wanted to play, you basically had to dial the TV studio phone number, and if you were lucky enough, as there were a lot of people who wanted to play this, so the TV studio phone line was always busy, you had a chance to help Hugo to rescue his family captured by the evil witch. Technically, Hugo was a set of simple minigames controlled by 2 or 3 buttons each, and the engineers from Denmark added just one little thing to help this set of minigames conquer the world in no time. They found a way to make TV viewers available to control the main character of the games with their home phone. And it was a blast. Hello YouTube, my name is Victor and you're watching the Russian Video Game Comrade Show. Today I will not only tell you how they did this, but I will also recreate this method using the modern tech. Hugo took over Denmark like a hurricane, and just several years later it was already aired in Spain and France. After these 3 countries, Hugo mania spread further with incredible speed, and by 1998, the year Hugo came to Russian TV, it was already aired in 43 countries total. I understand that most of the guys in Europe and US in 1998 already played the first PlayStation and PC multiplayer shooters, and couldn't be amused by some 16-bit Amiga platformer. But here in Russia, a lot of us still played NES and Mega Drive clones, and the fact we could play some game with our phone on live television was astonishing. So Hugo became one of the most popular TV shows among kids in Russia. I remember clearly the time Hugo was aired on Russian TV, because I was already into video games that time, and despite I've already had a PC back then, Hugo seemed so cool and innovative, I really wanted to call and try to play the game myself. But I never did. The thing is, I lived in St. Petersburg, and the game was hosted from Moscow. I was only 12 in 1998, but I already knew that the call from St. Petersburg to Moscow would be charged, and I could get in trouble when my parents would get the bill for it. Plus, I wasn't sure if the game phone line wasn't a pay-per-call one. Reading the comments under the Russian version of this video, I realized that in Russia it wasn't. And what about the rest of the world? Can you please tell me, guys? But all of this are just minor nuances. The most important thing is, the guys from Denmark invented a TV game yes, you my friend, could play yourself from your own home with a phone in the 90s. Fascinating. Just fascinating. Anyway, I hope that everyone who did miss the Hugo show in the 90s can understand what it was now. If you want more info on it, please check out the videos by Stika or Nostalgia Nerd on the topic, I'll leave the links in the description. And our goal today is to figure out how the hell this magic worked and can we recreate it today. In the 90s, the most modern and expensive equipment was used to implement such an ambitious project. This is the ITE System 3000. This huge cabinet was designed by the ITE company and was supplied to everyone who bought the rights to broadcast Hugo TV show. It contained 2 cutting-edge for the 1990 Amiga 3000 computers, DTMF decoder, MIDI sampler and all the other necessary peripherals. The price for this machine was $100,000. And when these huge machines started to arrive to other countries, it appeared that not all of them even had a decent phone lines. So the TV studios who wanted to start their own version of the show in their country had to buy additional single-board Intel 4080 PC to help the ITE 3000's DTM decoder to decode the signal. And it came for an additional price, of course. So how did the Hugo show work? The game itself was run on the Amiga computer. We will also run it on the Amiga computer today, but unfortunately we don't have an Amiga 3000. So we will downshift a little and run the game on the Amiga 500. The Commodore controller port works on the principle of the contact closure. When you press a button, a joystick sends a simple signal to the computer. In the case of each separate button on the joystick port, a certain contact is simply closed. And basically this is how Amiga or C64, the principle here is the same, understands which button was pressed. The Commodore doesn't care who or what will close these contacts: joystick, man with the wires, steering wheel, potatoes or telephone. The only question is how to make this someone or something physically close these contacts. And Hugo's secret is exactly in this process. Engineers from Denmark decided to use the phone buttons on the far end of the line instead of the joystick and interpret the signal coming over the phone line into binary code, which will instruct a special device to physically close the contacts on the computer's joystick port. This was realized using the dual-tone multi-frequency technology, aka DTMF, or speak in English, tone dialing. If you have ever paid attention to the sound made by your phone when you dial a number, and you can even check it right now using your cell phone. The phone emits a unique beep each time you press a different digit. Even the human ear is able to tell the difference between the sound of a 4 and a 6, and the computer can make it even better and faster, if you have enough computing power. And then there is only one thing left. You have to find a way to turn these analog sounds into binary code. You need to make sure that, for example, when you press button 4 on the phone, the sound corresponds, for example, to signal 1, as if a person tilts the joystick stick to the left. The sound of the button 6 to signal 10, as if the joystick is tilted to the right. Up 11, down 100, press the action button 101, and so on. As simple as that. The phone line transmits audio signals instantly, and analog TV also broadcasts in real time. Considering this, there is no trouble at all to coordinate those things and give the viewer an opportunity to play on TV. Yes, depending on the quality of the telephone line and quality of the television broadcasting in the viewer's region, a delay will be applied to this technology. But if you'll make a game that can be played with a little time lag, this delay wouldn't be a problem at all. But the main problem for the developers still remained: the technical realization of this idea. In 1990, it was only possible with such a huge coffin priced at $100,000, although it had only to convert the analog sound received from the phone into binary code and merge the result with the game. Today's video is a striking example of how much technology has leaped forward in just 30 years. After all, the thing that in 1990 required an expensive ultra-modern computer, in 2021 can be realized with the help of such a small board, with a total cost of about $7. Yes, in addition to it, you have to have a computer capable of running an old Amiga game. But today we use an Amiga 500 for it, and you could already buy one in the 1990 for not a high price, as it was already a little outdated. And if we wanted to take it to the bank, we could really use an ordinary PC and its game port that works basically the same as Commodore joystick port. And I don't really know how the thing with outdated PCs are in Europe or US now, but here in Russia you can buy a second-hand Core 2 Duo based PC 100% capable of all the things we need for our project for no more than $15 now. So, in 30 years, a $100,000 computer became easily substituted with a cheap PC and a little PCB for $25 total. And naturally, in 2021 we will use a cell and not a leyline phone for our little project. The type of a cell phone we need doesn't matter. It just has to have a mini jack port for the sound output. A little more technical information for the curious viewers, and we will finally play the game. When a player who is supposed to call the show presses a button on his phone, the tone sound of pressing, let me remind you, unique for each digit, is transmitted to our phone and then it's outputted to our breadboard. Our device is based on the MT808070 chip. It's the one engaged in decoding the analog audio signal coming from our phone via the mini jack and the audio filter. MT808070 encodes DTMF signals into binary code. Basically, it directly converts a digit from decimal to binary. It represents 2 as 10, 5 as 101, and so on. Then, using 4 wires, the 4 bits we need, it sends the resulting binary code to the next non-gate chip, an inverse decoder from a binary code to decimal one. But this time it's already digital. This chip has 4 inputs and 10 outputs. Depending on the resulting figure, it electrically closes one of its output pins. The problem is that the output signal on this chip is active low, and we need it to be active high to further close the necessary contacts on the joystick port. This is the reason we need another inverter chip here. It converts the resulting low level on the desired pin to high. The last two chips on the breadboard are AND gates. These ones are needed to send the signal to one of the 5 transistors to close the contact, and at the same time to send the signal to the computer once and not constantly. So AND gates are basically in charge of the interrupts. And at the very end of the breadboard there are 5 transistors installed, which are simply used as keys, responsible for closing a specific contact depending on the button pressed. Each of the transistors is responsible for its own button. And now it's finally the time for us to call Hugo. All we need to do before the start is pretty obvious. We connect our device to the joystick port, hook the phone to it through the mini jack, and dial this phone from any other phone. And this is it. Our distant gamepad is ready and we can run the game now. As I've already mentioned, we're using the Amiga 500 today. It's a little outdated computer for Hugo, so we will have some difficulties during the gameplay, but it wouldn't affect the purity of our experiment in any way. The thing is, Amiga 500 doesn't have an HDD, so we have to run the game from the FDD. We simplified the task a little by installing a Gotak floppy emulator, which launches games from the floppy images, but we still have to swap the virtual floppy disks from time to time. But this is only additional unnecessary action for our hands. It could become a problem if we were on TV, as it would double the time needed for the loading process. But for now, it's completely irrelevant. Just the fun fact I wanted to share with you. And still, by doing this, we have an honor to run the game not via some emulator, but with the original machine similar to the one they used in the original TV show. But you also have to keep in mind that our device can be used with almost any computer, and you can play any games with it, not just Hugo games. But yes, the device has a pretty big latency. Not the device itself, of course, but any device working via DTMF signal. I'll show you it with the legendary Amiga game Shadow of the Beast. The controls works okay, and the game even interprets its right when I press the button continuously. Here, if I hold down 6 on my phone, the character of the game will continue to move to the right. But there is one flaw here. If you need him to stop moving, you have to think in advance, as the movement won't stop until all the signals of the pressed buttons are worked out. So you have to send the commands via your phone carefully, considering all your next actions because of the delay. In other words, you have to move, jump or punch slowly. And again, because of the delay, you have to plan your actions before they have to be executed, and do it at least half a second in advance. You can get used to this in time, but to be honest, despite everything works, you won't be able to play fast games with this control scheme. For example, Super Mario Bros. Would be impossible to play. But the system itself works great. Perhaps the data transmission delay was the main reason Hugo games were developed the way they were. Quite slow and simple compared to a lot of other platformers from the 90s. Some minigames, for example the train game, can be completed easily, and maybe you even won't notice the control delay at all. Some, for instance the forest game, can also be completed in several tries, when you'll get used with the latency and start to press the jump button a little earlier than you have.
Ой-ой-ой-ой.
Нет, надо было налево прыгать.
Но тут тоже непонятно, в какой момент это сделать. Уже прямо перед камнем.
Прямо
видимо,
перед камнем, да.
Так, только не говори, что у тебя ролик на другой дискете.
And some, for example the airplane game, will become a real pain in your ass. On the other hand, now I completely understand why the players back then had such troubles with the minigame that seemed so easy. There were only 2 buttons for steering there, left and right. Why did they play it so bad? The answer is simple. The playing game itself is a really responsive game. If you play it on a keyboard or a joystick, it reacts to the buttons immediately, and this is the thing that creates a terrible confusion in the heads of the player as soon as the controls begin to slow down. But I have to say that the experience, despite that, is still fun.
Ай, куда-то я в грозу-то полетел. Левей, левей, правей, собака страшная, правей.
Вот причина, по которой дети улетали не туда.
А вот смотри, у меня есть все шансы пролететь туда, если меня сейчас не шарахнет. Ну, конечно. Конечно.
After these tests, by the way, I can tell you with a 100% certainty that the footage of the TV show where the caller finished the walk along the mountain level with the very first try and even collected all the bonus bags on his way is a fake. This is simply impossible.
Кнопки 4-5. 4-5. Первое же удачное нажатие кнопки 4 и 675 очков. Более великолепно справляется с этой задачей. Внимание, расщелина кнопка 5. Кнопка 5. Кузя под руководством опытного путешественника по горам идет уверенно к победе. 2025 очков.
Well, nothing is impossible by the default, but this one would be possible if only the player could practice the run before his TV try for like 100 times. And this is definitely impossible. On the first try, knowing the rules of the game, you can very easily go through the trains. On the second, realizing how much earlier you need to press the jump over obstacles in the mountains or forest several times. But completing the levels from the first try without any preparations and prompts, and don't make even one mistake? Sorry, no. Only professional speedrunners could do that.
Но оно, видишь, по сложности и получается. Поезда простые, горка чуть посложнее, это совсем сложно, это дырка какая-то. Time lag.
So, I am sure such fragments were pre-recorded using the joystick or keyboard on the Amiga itself, to raise the morale of children who wanted to call the TV game and try to play it themselves. Sorry for ruining this for you. I wish I was wrong. As I know, Hugo never made it to the USA and remained popular only in the European part of the globe. But Hugo's popularity here was just wild. According to the information from the internet, in the mid-90s, the total number of the TV show viewers in all the countries of show coverage combined exceeded 1 billion people. Over the time, Hugo games started to be released for ordinary computers and consoles. And in the 2000s, they even tried to revive Hugo in Denmark on the mobile phones. They say that in Hugo's homeland, mobile Hugo runners were on the top of the App Store and Google Play downloads for a long time. But of course, that popularity wasn't even close to the popularity of the original TV show. I understand that it's fun to know how it worked back then and to know that you can do the same thing now using modern tech. But the most fun part of Hugo is gameplay, right? Here in Russia, we are planning to live stream the game using the breadboard we made, but unfortunately I can't stream the game worldwide, as it will be very expensive for the viewers to call Russia just to play some Hugo. But the thing is, I know that some of the foreign bloggers watch my channel, and I'm willing to share either the device itself or the instructions how to make one with anyone who wants to make such a live stream in their country. The only thing I'll ask in exchange, mention this Russian video game comrade video on your video, live stream or whatever it will be. So please, if you want to make such contact, do not hesitate to DM me on RVGC Twitter, and we'll find out a way to do this. As I really think that the retro gaming community all over the world should be together in their love for video games. After all, these are the games that made us the people we are. And it's really great that in the 21st century the internet gives us the opportunity to share our love for video games with each other.
Еще чуточку. Куда ты так заваливаешься-то? Слушай, а он сам как-то так уносит его зверски. Да не надо мне в облака. Стой, 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 стой. Меню. Ага, правильно, еще только чуть правее надо. Правей, 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 левей, левей. Зараза, нет, между ними.
Это очень смешно.
Thank you for watching this episode. I really hope you liked it. Please press thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Have a nice day. Good luck!